It began like any other night on the streets of Los Angeles. The kind of night where the city glowed but people passed by like shadows. Where stories got swallowed in the noise of traffic and neon, and where people like Derek Malone, invisible to most, lived between streetlights and silence. He was sitting near the corner of 5th and Main, his back resting against the cold brick wall of an old bakery. His hands were tucked into the sleeves of a faded army jacket. Beside him, a rusted shopping cart held everything he owned, a half-torn blanket, a chipped tin mug, an old photograph sealed in plastic, and a copy of To Kill a Mockingbird with half the pages missing. Derek wasn't drunk. He wasn't crazy either. Not like some assumed. He was just tired. Life hadn't always been this way. Once, he had a name that meant something. A job. A family. Even a house in Echo Park. But that was before everything burned, not in fire, but in consequence. Before the world stopped listening and started watching him fall. Now, people didn't see him anymore. Until that night. It was around 10:47 p.m. when he heard the first scream. Sharp. High-pitched. Then a second one. A woman's voice. Derek's eyes snapped open. He turned his head toward the sound. Smoke was curling into the air, slow at first, almost dancing under the yellow streetlight, then thicker, darker. He stood up, wheezing slightly. Years of sleeping on concrete had worn his body down, but instinct moved faster than pain. Across the street, a narrow apartment building, old, brick, 5 floors, was breathing fire. The 3rd floor glowed an ugly orange. People were running. Some filming with their phones. Some just yelling. But nobody was going in. Nobody ever does. And then came the voice, clear, piercing, "My daughter. My baby's still inside." That was it. Derek's body moved before his mind could stop it. He sprinted across the street. His boots slapped against asphalt. As he approached, he could feel the heat already pulsing like a heartbeat from the doorway. The mother, a woman in her mid-30s, trembling, grabbed his arm. "She's 8. Apartment 3B. Please, please someone." Derek looked at her for a split second, and then nodded. "I got her," he said. He didn't know why he said it. He hadn't been anyone's hero in years. But something about that voice, about the girl trapped above the flames, about the sheer helplessness in the mother's eyes, ignited something he thought he'd lost. He pulled the collar of his jacket over his nose and ran into the fire. The air changed instantly. Inside, the building was chaos. Smoke crawled along the ceiling and rolled down the walls. The fire alarm screeched, but no water rained from the sprinklers, probably broken. Paint peeled. Wood cracked. The stairs were still holding, but barely. Flames were lapping at the banisters. He charged up, coughing hard, eyes stinging, lungs protesting. By the 2nd floor, his knees were wobbling. He paused, leaning on the wall, blinking furiously. And then he heard it again. A soft whimper. Help. 3rd floor. He forced himself to move. Apartment 3B. The door was locked. He didn't have time to think. He rammed his shoulder into it once. Twice. The 3rd time, the door snapped open with a splintered shriek. Smoke blasted him in the face. He crouched low. That's what he remembered from training: stay low, crawl, breathe slow. He slid forward, hands feeling the ground, eyes scanning. That's when he saw her. Curled beneath a table. Crying. Her long hair matted to her face. Cheeks stained with ash. "Hey," he said softly, dropping beside her. "It's okay. I'm here." She looked at him, eyes huge, full of fear and trust. "What's your name?" "Emily," she whispered. "Okay, "Emily," he said. "We're gonna play a game, all right? You and me. The get out of the fire game. You hold on to me, real tight. Can you do that?" She nodded. He wrapped her in his arms. She was so light, like air. Like a memory. As they turned back toward the hallway, the ceiling groaned, loud, long, and angry. The roof was starting to cave in. The way they came was gone. But Derek knew this building. He'd walked past it 100 times. Knew the fire escape was at the end of the hall, past a narrow pantry room. He ran. The floor cracked under his feet. Wood split. Fire chased them. He burst through the pantry door, kicked out the old window. Cold air rushed in, biting through the heat. Below was the fire escape, rusted, barely hanging on. No time. He climbed out, holding Emily to his chest, feet searching for balance. Below them, the fire had reached the second floor. The metal railing was burning hot. He had one shot. He looked into her eyes. "You trust me?" She nodded. He jumped. The fall was only one story, but in that moment, it felt like they dropped through time. They landed hard on the sidewalk. He twisted midair to take the brunt of it, slamming against the ground. His ribs screamed. But he didn't let go. People swarmed them. Paramedics. Police. Onlookers. He handed Emily to her mother, who collapsed in sobs. Reporters shouted questions. Cameras flashed. "Who are you? What's your name? How did you know she was in there?" But Derek didn't answer. He just stood up slowly, limping. Looked at Emily one last time. Then he disappeared into the night. For most, that would have been the end. But for Emily's mother, Claire Harrington, widow of real estate mogul Daniel Harrington, it was just the beginning. Because the more she tried to find the man who saved her daughter, the more questions she uncovered. And when she showed Emily a photo of Derek from a news clipping the next morning, the girl had said something no one expected. "I've seen him before," she whispered. Claire blinked. "Where?" "In that building," Emily said. "In my dreams. Before the fire." By the next day, the story had gone viral. Homeless hero rescues millionaire's daughter, then vanishes. Detectives searched shelters. Journalists scoured the streets. But Derek Malone had disappeared without a trace. What no one knew, not Claire, not the press, not even the firefighters, was that this wasn't Derek's first fire. And it wasn't the first time he'd saved a child from one. Los Angeles was awake. Every screen, every phone, every TV, every digital billboard, flashed the same headline. Who is the homeless hero? Fire rescue sparks global hunt for mystery man. Talk shows debated his identity. Social media flooded with hashtags like #FindDerek and #RealLifeAngel. People speculated everything from ex-firefighter to fallen billionaire. Some said he was a veteran. Others claimed they'd seen him before near Union Station or sleeping by the downtown library. But nobody really knew. No last name. No history. No trace. Except one person. Emily. The 8-year-old girl hadn't spoken much since the fire. Not to the therapists. Not even to her mother. But the morning after, she asked for crayons. She sat quietly by the window, sketching on white paper. Claire thought it was just a child's way of coping. Until she looked closer. It wasn't just drawings. It was the man. 6 different versions. All of Derek. Same eyes, same jacket, same tired face. In some, he was standing beside flames. In others, he was in a field. But one sketch chilled Claire to her core. It showed Derek standing beside a woman. holding a baby. Behind them, the same building that burned. Emily, Claire asked gently. Who is this? Emily pointed at the baby in the picture. That's me. Claire blinked. Sweetheart, what do you mean? You've never met that man before. I did, Emily whispered. When I was little. You were just a baby. Emily looked out the window. I remember. Claire didn't know what to say. But the chill in her spine didn't go away. Across the city, under a different sky, Derek Malone was hiding. He wasn't sure why he saved the girl. Not really. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was guilt. He was sitting in an abandoned train yard now, far from downtown. Wrapped in an old coat he'd found. Watching smoke rise from a distant chimney. He hadn't eaten. His body still ached from the fall. But his mind wasn't quiet. He hadn't been inside that building in 17 years. Not since that night. Not since the fire that had changed everything. It wasn't coincidence. Not anymore. He'd run into that building for a reason. Some part of him knew she was there. Somehow, he remembered. 17 years earlier, Derek wasn't homeless. He was a firefighter. Station 49. One of the best. He'd been newly married to a woman named Rachel, a nurse with the kind of laugh that could quiet a storm. They lived 3 blocks from that same building, the one that now lay in ashes. Rachel had grown up in apartment 3B. She used to say the place had a soul. That it remembered who lived there. That buildings, like people, held secrets. Back then, Derek never believed in signs. He believed in training, strategy, muscle memory. He didn't believe in fate. Until the night Rachel and their newborn daughter died in a fire. In that same building. The official report called it an electrical fault. But Derek never believed that. He'd gotten there too late. He'd kicked open the same door. He'd seen the crib. Empty. Flames licking the ceiling. There had been no baby inside. Just smoke. Just silence. No one could explain it. No remains were found. And just like that, his world collapsed. Back in the present, Claire Harrington was doing her own investigation. She had hired a private investigator. Someone discreet. She wasn't looking for the press to find Derek. She wanted to thank him. To help him, maybe. But after what Emily had said, and those drawings, Claire felt something deeper. Like she owed him something. The PI, a quiet ex-cop named Vin Dorsey, returned in 2 days. I've got something weird, he said, tossing a file on her kitchen table. Only one match on the guy's face. DMV photo. Name's Derek Malone. Former firefighter. But, get this. Claire raised her eyebrows. He was declared dead. 17 years ago. She froze. Dead? Yup. After a fire in East LA, same address as your place. The one that burned. Claire's blood turned cold. What happened? His wife and baby were listed as missing. Presumed dead. But no bodies were ever recovered. Guy lost it after that. Disappeared. They declared him legally deceased 2 years later. Claire looked down at the file photo. Same eyes. Same man. Same jacket. Where's he now? She asked. Vin shrugged. That's the part nobody knows. 2 nights later, Derek had a dream. He was back in the building. Only this time, it wasn't burning. It was whole. The wallpaper clean. The hallway quiet. Rachel stood at the far end, holding a baby wrapped in pink. Come home, she said. He walked toward her. But every step made the hallway longer. The lights flickered. Her face began to blur. Then he heard a whisper. "Emily." He jolted awake. Heart racing. Chest heaving. The train yard was quiet again. But something inside him was screaming. Emily, meanwhile, had stopped drawing. She was asking questions instead. Grown-up questions. About Derek. About the fire. About her mom. Was Daddy ever in a fire, she asked one night. Claire's hand froze mid-air, spoon hovering over soup. "Why would you ask that?" "I don't know," Emily said. "I just feel like I was in one before." "You were," Claire said gently. "This week, remember?" "No," Emily said. "Before that." Claire stared at her daughter. She looked so much like Daniel. Same eyes. Same face. But something about the way she talked lately. It felt like she remembered a life that didn't belong to her. The next morning, a nurse at a nearby shelter saw a man matching Derek's description sitting near the back exit. She gave him a sandwich. He didn't talk much. Just said, "Thanks." Then she noticed something. He had a burn scar on his shoulder, shaped like a crescent moon. Odd. Deep. Old. Later that night, she saw the viral photo again and called Claire anonymously. "I think your guy's still in the city," she said. "And I think he wants to be found." Claire didn't send the police. She went herself. She found him near the edge of the LA River, under a broken overpass. He didn't look surprised when she arrived. "You're Emily's mother," he said before she could speak. "Yes." Silence stretched between them. Wind tugged at her coat. His eyes were hollow, but alert. "Why did you save her?" Claire asked. He looked away. "I don't know. You could have died." "I already did," he said. She didn't know what to say. But then he added, quietly. "She looked like someone I knew." Claire sat beside him. "Emily says she saw you before." He turned his head. "In dreams," she said. "Even before the fire. She drew pictures of you. From inside that building. From years ago." He closed his eyes. Claire took something out of her bag. A photo. Old. Faded. It was of Rachel and a baby. Smiling. "She's not my daughter," Claire whispered. "Not by blood." Derek's eyes snapped open. "She was adopted. From a private agency. 8 years ago. No records of the birth mother. But the birth certificate said her name was Rachel Malone." Derek's entire body went still. "She's yours, isn't she?" Claire asked. Derek didn't answer. His hands were shaking. The world stopped moving for Derek Malone. The name Rachel Malone, the adoption, the baby, Emily. Everything was spinning too fast, and yet, too slow. Claire had just handed him the photo of Rachel holding a baby, and the name on the back, Rachel Malone, 2008, rattled in his hands like dynamite. He had stared at the image so many times before, but now, it was like seeing a ghost hand him back his life. "I don't understand," he finally whispered. Claire sat across from him on the low wall under the overpass, the wind fluttering the ends of her coat. She looked calmer than she felt. "Neither did I," she replied. "Until 2 weeks ago." Claire had always known Emily was adopted. But the circumstances of her adoption were strange. Her late husband, Daniel Harrington, had arranged it privately, through one of his friends at a high-end legal firm. No agency. No hospital records. No foster trail. Claire hadn't questioned it at the time. She'd been recovering from a miscarriage, and the arrival of Emily had felt like a miracle. But after Derek's rescue, and Emily's unshakable drawings, Claire dug through what little paperwork she had. There it was. Infant female, name, Emily. Mother, Rachel Malone. Father, unknown. Date of birth, March 28, 2008. The same date as Derek's missing child. The same mother's name. Same city. And the birthmark. Claire had always thought it was just a scar, shaped like a crescent moon, right near Emily's shoulder blade. But now. Derek trembled as he lit a half-burnt cigarette. He wasn't even sure why he still smoked. Maybe because it gave his hands something to do while his life came apart, again. He looked at Claire. "You're saying she's mine?" "I think she is," Claire said softly. "But that's not even the strangest part." Derek looked up. "She's been dreaming of you," Claire said. "Before the fire. Weeks before. She described the building you ran into. The same one you lost your wife in. She even knew the layout. She told me, she used to live there. But she didn't. Didn't she?" Claire's voice wavered. "Because sometimes, it feels like she remembers a life I was never part of. A life I don't even understand." Derek's mouth opened, but no words came out. He didn't know what was more impossible, that Emily was his daughter, alive after all these years, or that she had memories of a life she shouldn't remember. That night, Emily had another dream. She was in a dark hallway, lined with wallpaper that peeled in waves. Smoke was creeping under the door at the end. Her small feet carried her forward. Her hand reached for the knob. Behind her, someone whispered her name. "Emily." She turned. There he was. The man with the sad eyes and soldier's jacket. The one she now knew was Derek. Her real father. He knelt down. "Don't be afraid," he said. "But you have to remember." "Remember what?" "What happened that night. You were there." Emily looked confused. "But I was a baby." He touched her shoulder. His fingers were warm. Even babies remember things. Especially the things that hurt. The fire roared louder. She turned back to the door. And opened it. When Emily woke up, she was crying. She couldn't explain why. Only that she saw a woman inside the room. A woman holding her. Singing. And then flames. Then, someone took her. Pulled her away. Not her mother. Not Derek. Someone else. The next day, Claire brought Emily to meet Derek. She didn't tell her daughter who he really was. She only said he was the man who saved her. But Emily seemed to already know. When she saw him, her face lit up with a strange kind of familiarity, not joy, not fear, but something deeper. "Hi," she said, as if greeting an old friend. Derek knelt down in front of her, tears already forming in his eyes. "You all right, kiddo?" he asked softly. Emily nodded. "I knew you were real." He swallowed hard. "Yeah. Me too." Claire watched them from a few feet away, her heart breaking and healing all at once. But something tugged at her mind. A detail. A shadow. A question. If Emily really was Derek's daughter, how had she survived the fire 17 years ago? Derek remembered the fire like a scar burned into memory. The night Rachel and the baby vanished, he'd come home late. There had been traffic. A downed line on Sunset. By the time he arrived, the building was already ablaze. He ran inside, ignoring protocol. Screaming their names. He found the baby's crib, empty. Rachel's necklace, on the floor. And then, silence. The official report said there was no way either of them could have survived. But what if? What if someone had taken Emily? Claire brought the file back out, Rachel's name on the birth certificate, the private adoption. She took it to a journalist friend. A quiet one. Trustworthy. The friend traced the notary's signature to a now-defunct private firm called Carthorne & Bell, a boutique agency known for handling discreet placements of newborns. But what she found made Claire feel physically sick. Carthorne & Bell had been under investigation 15 years ago for laundering infants through shell adoptions. Infants with no paper trail. Especially those presumed dead or orphaned in disasters. Like house fires. One of the partners had committed suicide in 2011. The other vanished. No one had ever connected them to the Harrington family. Until now. Claire called Derek to meet her at her house. They sat at the kitchen table, the file open between them. "This wasn't an accident," she said. "Your wife didn't die in the fire. Someone took Emily, probably before the building even collapsed. They covered it up. The fire may have been a distraction, or worse." Derek clenched his jaw. "Are you saying she was trafficked?" "Sold," Claire said bluntly. "And Daniel, my husband, may have unknowingly bought her." Derek stood up, shaking. All those years he spent blaming himself. All the nights sleeping on concrete. All the guilt. And she'd been alive. Raised by strangers. Stolen. Emily's drawings became darker. She stopped coloring flowers and houses. Now she drew halls filled with smoke. Men in suits. A staircase that led nowhere. A woman's face with no eyes. Derek recognized the pattern. Repressed trauma surfacing. He knew Emily was remembering more than just dreams. She was remembering real things. And Claire feared that whoever orchestrated her adoption might still be out there. Watching. Waiting. 2 days later, a brick shattered Claire's living room window. No note. No warning. Just a crescent moon drawn in black marker on the brick. The same shape as the burned scar on Emily's shoulder. Claire screamed. Derek came running from the guest room. He saw the brick. The mark. He didn't say a word. But his eyes told her everything. Someone knew. The next morning, Derek and Claire took Emily to a friend of his from the old days, Detective Julian Cross, now retired, but still respected. Julian read the file, flipped through the photos, then looked up. "You know this kind of thing gets buried fast, right?" he said. "Private firms. Dead witnesses. No smoking gun. You're up against ghosts." "I've been chasing ghosts for 17 years, Derek said. "I'm not stopping now." Julian looked at Emily. "She might be your key." Claire frowned. "She's just a kid." "Kids remember things adults block out," he replied. "She saw something. Her brain just locked it away." Derek nodded. "So how do we unlock it?" "There's someone I know," Julian said slowly. "She's a memory retrieval therapist. Works with kids who've suffered trauma. It's not hypnosis, it's guided recall. Might help her piece things together." Claire hesitated. "Is it safe?" "No safer than letting whoever threw that brick come back." That night, Derek stayed by Emily's door while she slept. He couldn't explain it, but something felt off. Like the air was thicker. Like the shadows were listening. He sat in the hallway with Rachel's photo in his hand. And for the first time in 17 years, he let himself cry. Not for the years lost. Not even for Rachel. But for the little girl sleeping behind that door. His daughter. In her dream, Emily walked the burning hallway again. But this time, she turned the other way. There was a door she hadn't noticed before. At the very end. Metal. Cold. She opened it. Inside was a small room. A nursery. She was back in the crib. A woman walked in, not Rachel. A stranger. She whispered, "Hush now, baby. You're going somewhere safe." Emily screamed. And woke up in real life, sobbing into her pillow. "I saw her," she cried. "The woman who took me." The morning after Emily's scream shattered the silence, the Harrington house felt like a pressure cooker. Claire stood in the kitchen, hands shaking as she poured coffee she didn't want to drink. Derek paced the hallway, jaw tight, eyes sunken. Emily had barely spoken since the dream, but the name had come out in a whisper. Lenora. No last name. No memory of a face. Just a name, dragged from the black water of Emily's subconscious. They sat together in the living room. Claire gently asked, "Do you remember anything else, baby?" Emily shook her head. "Was Lenora someone who helped you?" "She took me," Emily said quietly. "I was crying, and she picked me up and told me to be quiet." She didn't smile. "Where were you?" "A room," Emily said. "It had stars on the ceiling." Claire and Derek exchanged glances. It wasn't the first time Emily mentioned stars. In her earliest drawings as a toddler, years before the fire, she had drawn a ceiling covered in tiny, glowing dots. At the time, Claire had assumed it was imagination. But now, they took Emily to see Dr. Noel Vega, the memory retrieval specialist Julian Cross recommended. Her office was a warm, quiet space in Silver Lake, filled with soft furniture and even softer light. No diplomas on the wall. No sterile clinical vibe. Just trust. Dr. Vega greeted them with a calm presence, crouched in front of Emily and spoke to her like an equal. "You've been dreaming things that feel real," she said kindly. "And sometimes our brains hide memories from us to protect us. But when they start to come back, it means you're ready." Emily nodded. Derek watched from the glass beyond the one-way mirror, heart pounding. The session was slow, deliberate. Dr. Vega used drawings, sounds, even scents to trigger associations. Lavender made Emily wince. So did the scent of burning wood. But when Dr. Vega pulled out a recording of lullabies, just random ones, from various sources, Emily froze. Her hand gripped the crayon tight. Her eyes welled up. And then she whispered. "That one." The lullaby playing was an old Gaelic folk song. "Can you tell me what you feel?" Dr. Vega asked. Emily's hands started moving fast, sketching. 10 minutes later, she pushed the paper forward. It showed a warehouse with a rusted sign. Connolly Imports. And a woman with long silver hair. Back in the observation room, Claire gasped. She recognized the name. Daniel, her late husband, had once mentioned a Connolly Imports warehouse that handled unregistered cargo containers coming through Long Beach. But he'd passed it off as boring logistics talk. Now, that same name was coming from a child who had never heard it in her life. Derek stood still, fists clenched. "This is where they took her," he said. That night, Claire pulled out Daniel's old journals from the attic. He'd been meticulous about business meetings, deals, and calls. Most were benign. But one entry, dated May 4, 2008, stood out. "Meeting at Connolly. Lenora confirmed. No paperwork to sign. Just cash. Keep Claire out of this." Claire dropped the notebook like it burned her. She backed away from it. Tears sprang to her eyes. Her husband, whom she'd trusted, had known. He hadn't just adopted Emily. He bought her. Derek didn't sleep that night. He sat on the back porch with a flask and Rachel's necklace dangling from his fingers. Every inch of his body buzzed with rage, grief, and cold determination. Emily was his daughter. Rachel must have tried to hide her. That's why they staged the fire. That's why no bodies were found. Rachel had been murdered. And Emily was trafficked by people who knew how to erase lives. But now? Now she remembered. And someone out there was getting nervous. Julian made a few calls. By noon the next day, he had a lead. "There's a storage yard listed under Connolly's old records," he said. "It's not on the books anymore. Last reported use was 2009. No employees. No CCTV. It's a dead zone." "Where?" Derek asked. Julian slid him a map. 30 minutes south of here. Off the 110. "Let's go." Claire blinked. "Now?" "Yes," Derek said. "Before whoever threw that brick comes back with something worse." The yard was a skeletal remnant of the past: rusted gates, toppled signs, and weeds pushing through cracked asphalt. There were 4 buildings. 3 were empty shells. But the 4th, made of faded red brick, had a chain around the door, still warm to the touch. Someone had been here. Recently. Derek broke the lock with a tire iron. The door creaked open. The air inside was stale but filled with something else. Memory. Inside, the building was quiet. Silent. Not the peaceful kind of quiet, but the kind that felt like holding your breath too long underwater. The walls were marked with peeling decals, stars, planets, tiny moons. Claire put her hand to her mouth. Emily had drawn this exact ceiling. This was a nursery, Derek said. There were no cribs now, just dust, and the distant echo of footsteps that once ran across the floor. Julian took photos, bagged some old toys that were still there. Then, in the corner, they found something strange. A journal. Not Daniel's. Not official. But handwritten in a woman's voice. The journal belonged to Lenora Shaw. Excerpts. May 1st, she's quiet, like the others. Doesn't cry much. The birthmark is still there. A little moon. They think it's cute. They don't know it's a curse. May 8th, Derek is looking for her. Of course he is. But he won't find her. The papers are burned. The girl is safe, for now. June 2nd, Rachel wouldn't cooperate. That's done now. Claire dropped the notebook. Derek's hand tightened so hard around the flashlight it cracked. She killed Rachel, he whispered. There was more in the building. Behind a false wall, they found an old metal cabinet. Inside were dozens of files, all coded, all stamped with initials, LS. Each contained data about infants, age, location, parents, extraction dates. Emily's file was labeled Project Orion / subject EM03. Below it, status, transferred. And beside it, one single name. Recipient, D. Harrington. Claire broke down. Derek didn't say a word. He turned and walked out of the building into the sun. His breath came in hard, broken gasps. He'd lived in the gutter for years. Thought himself a failure. A drunk. A ghost. But now? He was a father again. And someone had stolen 17 years of his child's life. He wasn't going to let them steal another day. Back at the house, Emily asked only one thing when they returned. Is she coming for me? Claire knelt down and pulled her close. Not if we find her first. That night, Derek had a memory. Not a dream, a real one. He saw Rachel, standing by the window that night, whispering to someone on the phone. I'm not handing her over, she said. I don't care what the deal was. She's ours. He remembered grabbing his keys. The traffic jam. The fire. Now it all made sense. Rachel knew. She was trying to escape. And Lenora was the executioner. Claire and Derek agreed, they couldn't go to the police. Not yet. This operation had roots too deep, hands in law enforcement, the courts, private firms. But they needed to find Lenora. Julian checked databases. Nothing. No death record. No arrest. No address. Then he got a ping from an offshore property registry. A private estate in Baja, Mexico. Registered under Leonora S. Hale. Same birthdate. Same handwriting on documents. Still alive. Still out there. And living comfortably while Derek mourned his wife and searched the streets like a ghost. Derek turned to Claire. I'm going to Mexico. I'm coming with you. He shook his head. You have to stay with Emily. But Claire took his hand. She's our daughter now. Whether by blood or fate. I'm not letting you do this alone. He saw it in her eyes. The fire hadn't just burned his life down. It had tied theirs together. Forever. The sky over Baja was pale gold, thick with dust and desert light. Derek stared out the car window as the SUV rumbled along the narrow, winding road that led up a coastal bluff. Cacti stood like sentinels on either side, and below, the Pacific crashed in slow, endless waves. Somewhere beyond the next curve, a mansion waited. Isolated. Hidden. Guarded. The last known address of Lenora Shaw, or as the documents now called her, Leonora S. Hale. Claire drove. She hadn't spoken much since they crossed the border. Her face was tight, composed. The same look she wore the day she buried her husband, not knowing the depth of his betrayal. Julian had prepped them both for what to expect. She won't be unprotected, he warned. People like her build walls that don't look like walls, servants who are really guards, gardens with cameras instead of roses. You go in soft. But stay sharp. Claire kept one hand near her concealed carry. Derek didn't bring a gun. Just a photograph. The one he had of Rachel, holding baby Emily. They reached the outer gate at 4:52 p.m. No guards visible. No dogs barking. Just silence, and an intercom. Claire pressed the button. A woman's voice crackled through. Yes? We have a delivery, Claire said evenly. There was a pause. Then the gate buzzed open. Derek stared at Claire. Delivery? She shrugged. Of the truth. The house was monolithic. Stone walls. Turrets. A sprawling courtyard paved with terracotta tile. A Mediterranean dream, hiding secrets behind hand-carved wooden doors and imported fountains. A maid answered, young, distracted. Her eyes flickered over Derek and Claire but didn't ask questions. She led them through the foyer to a lounge lined with velvet and leather furniture. Wait here, she said. Senora will be with you shortly. Derek felt sweat under his collar. Every clock tick felt like a hammer. Then, without warning, the doors swung open. And there she was. Lenora Shaw. She looked nothing like a villain. Tall, composed, dressed in soft gray silk. Her silver hair was perfectly coiled at the nape of her neck. A woman who could pass for a philanthropist, an opera patron, a grandmother. But her eyes, cold, pale blue, held no warmth. Just calculation. Claire Harrington, she said with a tight smile. And the fallen angel. I recognize you, Derek. His fists clenched. You remember me? You're hard to forget, Lenora said. Especially after the way you lit my operation on fire. No pun intended. Claire stepped forward. We're not here for word games. No, Lenora said. You're here for answers. She poured tea as if they were old friends. But everything about her was a performance. Lenora gestured to the seats. Sit. It's a long story. We'll stand, Derek growled. Suit yourselves. She stirred her tea slowly. Her rings clinked against the porcelain cup. I built a system, she began. Not out of greed. Out of need. There are children born into horror. Parents who can't feed them. Addicts who abandon them. The system fails them. I intervened. You sold them, Claire snapped. I placed them, Lenora corrected, sipping. Into homes that could give them lives of comfort. You don't understand the weight of my work. Derek's voice was low. Deadly. Rachel understood. That's why you killed her. For the first time, Lenora's face twitched. A microsecond crack. She broke the contract, she said. She lied about being alone. Hid the child. I gave her a chance to walk away. She was Emily's mother, Derek hissed. She was nothing but a vessel, Lenora replied coldly. The room grew icy. Claire stepped forward, pulled a folded paper from her jacket. I want you to read this. Lenora blinked. Took the sheet. It was a confession. Written by Julian. Detailing every operation Lenora had run. Names, dates, clients. Evidence attached. Where did you get this? She asked, voice tightening. Does it matter? Claire said. You're done. Lenora folded the paper calmly and rose. You think you can threaten me? In my home? No, Claire said. We're not threatening. Derek stepped forward, holding up Rachel's photo. We're just showing you what you destroyed. For a flicker of a second, something passed through Lenora's eyes. Recognition. Regret. Or maybe just calculation again. She was beautiful, Lenora whispered. Too emotional. That was her flaw. Her flaw, Derek repeated, stunned. Was being a mother. He lunged. Claire stopped him just short. Not yet, she whispered. Lenora tilted her head. You came all this way. For what? Justice? Closure? Neither exists. Derek stared at her. I came to end this. That night, Derek and Claire met Julian at a safe house near Ensenada. He had company. A young Mexican federal agent named Lucia Navarro, one of the few willing to go after elite offshore criminals. Julian laid out the plan. We have enough on her now to freeze her assets. But she has leverage. Connections. We have to bring her down not just legally, but publicly. Media? Claire asked. Bigger, Lucia said. The Global Task Force on Child Trafficking. We leak her files. Her photos. We name every client. And what about Emily? Derek asked. Will this be safe for her? Julian nodded. She won't be named. But if we wait, Lenora will vanish again. The next 48 hours were a blur. Files were uploaded. Encrypted documents released to journalists worldwide. Interpol was notified. Names like Connolly, Garrison, Malthus Corporation surfaced with explosive headlines. Lenora's world crumbled overnight. But she didn't run. She fought back. Within hours, Derek received a message. No number. Just a photo of Emily, taken through the school fence that morning. And one sentence. Back off. Or she disappears again. Panic ripped through Derek. He called Claire. She was already on her way to Emily. They pulled her out of school immediately and moved her to a private location under Lucia's protection. But the message meant only one thing. Lenora still had people. Even now. Even with the network falling. Claire turned to Derek. This ends now. Derek didn't argue. They knew what they had to do. That night, they returned to the estate. No disguise. No pretense. Lenora greeted them at the door, unfazed. "I told you," she said. "This is a war. You think you've won something?" Derek pulled out a USB. "It's over. Your files. Your buyers. All released." Lenora's smile faded. But she still whispered. "Children will still go missing. This doesn't stop it." "No," Claire said. "But it stops you." Behind her, Lucia stepped out of the shadows, followed by two Interpol agents. "You are under arrest, Miss Hale," Lucia said. Lenora stood frozen. "I have immunity." "Not anymore," Lucia cut in. "Not after today." As they handcuffed her, Lenora turned one last time to Derek. "You'll never be her real father," she spat. Derek stepped forward, eyes burning. "I already am." The trial took months. Claire testified. Derek testified. So did others, women who had escaped Lenora's operations, adoptive parents who realized the truth too late, and even former employees who broke their silence. Emily never had to speak. They kept her name sealed. But she knew what her father had done for her. What both of them had. On a warm spring morning, Derek sat under the same tree in Claire's garden where he used to sleep years ago. Emily ran into his arms, holding a picture she drew. It was the three of them. A family. He smiled, eyes wet. "Is that me?" She nodded. "You're the strong one." Claire stepped out with lemonade. The past was a scar. But it didn't define them anymore. They had burned down the house of secrets. And in its place, something better had begun to grow. The courtroom was cold, sterile, the kind of place where justice was supposed to be blind but often saw too much greed and fear. Derek sat with Claire and Emily, his daughter clutching his hand tightly. It was the day Lenora Hale's trial would begin in earnest. Months had passed since the explosive raid at her estate in Baja, and the world was watching. The international media circus buzzed outside the courthouse like a swarm of locusts, hungry for every whispered secret. But inside, the air was thick with tension, the kind that could snap nerves and shatter lives. Emily stared at the bench where Lenora now sat, handcuffed and cold-eyed, flanked by federal marshals. The woman who once ruled her life like a dark queen was now just a frail shadow, wrapped in a prison-issued gray dress. The judge called the courtroom to order. "State versus Leonora S. Hale," the bailiff intoned. The prosecutor, a tall woman with steely eyes, rose and addressed the court. "Your Honor, we will show a decades-long conspiracy of child trafficking, kidnapping, and illegal adoption. We will prove that the defendant profited by tearing families apart, destroying lives, all under the guise of philanthropy." Lenora's lips curled in a faint, bitter smile. Derek felt a surge of anger, but he swallowed it down, reminding himself this was justice, not vengeance. Claire leaned down to Emily. "Stay strong, baby. Daddy and I are here. Always." Emily nodded, eyes wide but brave. The trial unfolded like a tapestry of horrors. Testimonies revealed hidden warehouses like the one they found. Names of officials and businessmen who paid handsomely for children with clean identities. The false paperwork, the bribes, the fires that erased the past. One by one, survivors came forward. Women who'd been children in Lenora's care. Men who'd discovered they were born into lies. The courtroom became a battlefield. Derek testified last. He told the story of Rachel, his wife, and how she tried to protect their daughter from a fate worse than death. He spoke about the fire that nearly took Emily from him, the years of searching, and finally finding the truth. His voice cracked when he described the moment Emily had first spoken the name Lenora. "This woman didn't just steal my child," he said quietly. She stole my family. But I will do everything in my power to make sure she never hurts anyone again. Emily squeezed his hand, tears shining in her eyes. Outside the courthouse, the media swirled, hungry for a soundbite. Claire took a deep breath. This isn't just about us anymore. It's about thousands of children, kids who deserve a chance. Julian, who had worked tirelessly behind the scenes, nodded. This case could set a precedent. Break open trafficking networks worldwide. Lucia stood beside him. And it's only the beginning. But even as Lenora's empire crumbled, shadows lurked. Late one evening, Derek received an anonymous envelope slipped under his door. Inside, a small vial of white powder and a note. You can't save her from everyone. Fear gripped him like a vice. He and Claire agreed to ramp up security. Emily was kept away from school for a while, protected by federal agents. But the threats gnawed at Derek's soul. One night, unable to sleep, Derek sat alone in the garden. He thought about Rachel, about the years lost, about the fight still ahead. Claire joined him quietly. You're carrying a lot, she said softly. He nodded. I'm afraid. Not for me. For Emily. For her future. She took his hand. She's stronger than you think. Because she has you. Weeks passed. The trial reached its climax. Lenora's defense crumbled under mounting evidence. She was convicted on multiple counts: kidnapping, trafficking, conspiracy to commit murder. Her sentence was life imprisonment without parole. After the verdict, Derek felt a weight lift. But his heart ached for those still lost in the system. Together, Claire and Derek started a foundation in Rachel's name, dedicated to helping trafficking survivors and reunifying families. Emily was their shining light, proof that love could triumph over darkness. One afternoon, Emily showed Derek a drawing. A tree, tall, sturdy, with deep roots. Is this our family tree? She asked. He smiled, pulling her close. Yes, baby. And it's growing stronger every day. The past still whispered sometimes. But they faced it, not as broken pieces, but as a family forged through fire.